Yo, what's good, guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So today's story time, judging by the title, yeah, it's an interesting one. Now, this story time takes place actually a very long time ago. This takes place when I was 13 years old, so it was a while ago, yeah. Now, I'm not gonna lie, for my age at 13, I was definitely a little bit too mature, if that makes sense. I definitely was not doing things that most 13-year-olds were doing, such as playing video games, doing their schoolwork, learning what it's like to be a teenager. You see, the problem with me is I learned a little bit too fast what it's like to be a teenager, and not a very good one at that. And I'm not saying this as if it's cool. I'm not like, oh, I wasn't like regular 13-year-olds. I was a bad kid. I actually think it's kind of cringe how awful I was at that age. I was definitely sneaking out all the time, hanging out with people that were 3 years older than me. And I was just trying to be that little kid that everyone wanted to be around. Because at that age, a lot of my brother's older friends and a lot of people that were older didn't want to be around me because they thought I was just that annoying squeaker. So I was trying to break that reputation and, be mature for my age. But my issue was, at 13, I didn't know what mature was. And I thought it just meant doing bad things like the kids that were 15 and 16 did, such as, sneaking out, going to parties, skipping school, hanging out with my friends, just, not being the best kid. Anyway, you get the point. So around this time at 13, I wasn't behaving very well, and I was sneaking out a lot, and I mean a lot, probably every other day, and my mom was getting really mad at me, and my dad was getting really mad at me, and they kept wondering what was going wrong. So naturally, like most parents would do when you keep sneaking out, they grounded me. They're like, all right, no TV, no Xbox, no phone, you can't go out for a month, 1 month, you're grounded. Now I'm gonna be honest, at 13, this only made me want to sneak out more. So a week into the grounding, I was sitting in my room, bored as hell, nothing to do, no phone, no Xbox, no way to communicate with the outside world. So I quietly walked into the living room where the family computer was, and I snuck on there when my mom wasn't in the room. I hopped on Facebook, I messaged my friend Brian. He was my best friend at the time. He was also 2 years older than me. He was 15, and the rest of his friends were 15, 16, and those were the people I primarily hung out with. And I hit him up on Facebook and I was like, yo, I'm still grounded, but I'm trying to hang out today. I'm going to sneak out. Meet me at this park in 30 minutes. Now, I forgot to mention, it was a weekend, so I was extra bored on this day. The fact that I was grounded really sucked on weekends because, all my friends were out doing stuff. But the one good thing about the weekends at this time was my mom worked on weekends. She worked 4 to 9. So that meant I could, go outside, I could watch some TV, get on the computer, and she wouldn't know. And my dad didn't live with us. My parents were separated since I was born, so my dad had a separate house 10 minutes away, so he didn't know either. So obviously everything was good on weekends. So yeah, I stuck on the computer, I messaged Brian, told him to meet me there in 30 minutes at this park, and in 30 minutes my mom was about to be going to work, so yeah, everything was lining up essentially. Now after I sent the message to Brian, I logged off. I didn't see his response, I didn't see if he said yes or no, and I couldn't stay on the computer that much longer because if I did, my mom might come in the room and see me and, ground me, or maybe she'd stay home from work and make sure I don't use the computer. I don't know, right? So I just messaged him and hopped off. Now 30 minutes later, my mom left for work. She told me no computer, no TV, don't do anything while she's gone. If she finds out, she'll ground me longer. I'm like, okay. She leaves, I hear her car pull away, I hear the garage close. I run back to the computer, I turn it on immediately, check my Facebook messages. I see that Brian responded, he said he'd meet me there with some other friends. So after that, I closed Facebook and I ran to the park down the street from my house. Now I get to the park and literally all of my friends are there. Brian's there. He brought 3 other friends of mine that I was also pretty cool with that I knew through Brian. And like I said earlier, they were all older than me. Brian was 15, 2 of them were 16, and then one was 15, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, all a couple to 3 years older than me. So we're just sitting at this park, we're just hanging out. We're not really doing a whole lot. We're just kind of sitting there on this playground, not really knowing what to do. And we're trying to figure something out because we're all very bored and it's Saturday and we want to do something fun. So I came up with the idea where I'm like, hey, the mall is not even half a mile down the road. You want to go there? And they're all like, yeah, that's a great idea. So we get up, we walk to the mall, we get there, we walk inside, and we just start kind of exploring. We're walking around, checking out the stores, checking out things that we want to buy but we can't afford because we're all broke teenagers. And yeah, we're just walking around the mall, hanging out, right? And I forgot, but on weekends at the mall, there was curfew. So if you weren't 17 or older, you had to be accompanied by an adult. And I forgot about this. And sure enough, 20 minutes into being there, a security guard comes out of nowhere and he's like, hey, are you guys all 17? And we're all like, no. And he's like, all right, you guys gotta get out now. And we're like, okay. So we start getting escorted out of the mall, right, by the security. Now we get escorted out, they bring us to the front, and we sit down on one of the front benches trying to figure out what to do next. We were probably on this bench for a span of like 30 seconds before we see a police car pull up. Yeah, this mall that we went to, it also had cops stationed at the mall to make sure that like people were following curfew and to make sure if like a fight broke out, they could be there to break it up. So yeah, this mall had security and police patrol. So yeah, we're sitting on this bench for like 30 seconds and a police car pulls up literally right after we had gotten kicked out of the mall. And he pulls up right to the front of the bench. And he's like, "Hey, what are you kids doing?" And Brian's like, "Just sitting here trying to figure out where to go next because we just got kicked out of the mall." And the cop's like, "Yeah, you got kicked out? You guys are all under 17? And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, so keep it moving. Get off the mall property. You're not allowed to be here." Then another friend in our group spoke up. This friend's name was Jeff. Jeff was definitely the most like short-tempered, definitely the one with the most attitude out of all of our friends. And he stands up and he's like, "Officer, we just got kicked out. We just sat down. We've been here for 30 seconds. We're just coming up with a plan on where to go next. I promise you, we are and we were working on leaving." And the cop goes, "I don't need you to work on leaving. I need you to leave. So go come up with your plan somewhere else." So we all stand up. We start walking away. And as we're walking away, Jeff, the one that just said all that, mumbles under his breath, "Dickhead." And the cop hears him. And the cop goes, "Excuse me? What'd you just say?" And Jeff turns around and goes, "I'm sorry. I must have not said it loud enough. You're a dickhead." And I'm in my head thinking like, whoa, this kid's cool. He's talking back to authority. Like I'm 13 thinking like, whoa. And also I'm kind of afraid because the cop like is a cop and we're a bunch of kids. And the cop already didn't like us because we were, hanging around the mall and we were underage. Now after the cop hears this, he gets pissed off. He pulls his car over to the side. He gets out of the car. He walks up to us face to face. He gets right up in Jeff's face and he's like, "Say it again. See what happens." Now that was a little bit weird to me. This didn't seem like a cop trying to protect his community. This seemed like a cop that was like angry. He just got called a bad word and he wanted to get like, tough. But like I said, Jeff had a very short fuse / temper and he was not afraid. So when the cop said, "Say it again," Jeff stood on both feet and went, "You're a dickhead." And the cop immediately turns Jeff around and starts handcuffing him. And arresting him, dude. Which even at the time, at 13, I'm like, I don't think he committed a crime. Like, he called him a dickhead, yes, but I don't think it's illegal to call a cop a dickhead. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something in the law book that's like, hey, you can't call a cop a dickhead, okay? I don't know. Do I think Jeff shouldn't have called him a dickhead? Yeah, probably not. That's definitely not the right thing to do in this situation. But, I don't think it was illegal either. So, he starts arresting Jeff. And me and all my friends get closer, and we're all yelling. We're like, "Hey, don't arrest him. He's only 15. Like, what did he even do?" And the cop doesn't like this, and he puts out his arm while he's arresting Jeff, and he, pushes us all back super hard. Hard enough to make me fall over. I fell down onto my ass, and I got back up, and I was like, "What the hell?" And he yells at me, and he's like, "You want to be next?" And I was like, "I'm 13. Good luck sending me to jail." And he didn't like that challenge very much. After he handcuffed Jeff, he starts walking over to me. And he starts trying to put me in handcuffs. He's grabbing me by the arm. And I'm like, nah, this isn't happening. So I jumped backwards to kind of get out of his grip. And he doesn't like that. And he reaches out and he grabs my arm again. This time a lot harder. And he starts twisting it. And I'm not being dramatic here. This shit hurt. He was twisting my arm so hard. And it did not feel good. And me being 13 and being not very smart and also just being angry at the fact that I'm being arrested essentially at 13 years old for doing honestly nothing. I mean, I yelled, "Don't arrest him, he's only 15, and said, "What the hell?" But outside of that, I didn't do shit. And even those two things I did are not arrest worthy at all because I didn't commit a crime. There was no crime committed from me, right? So when he starts twisting my arm, I wasn't really thinking with my brain, I was just thinking with my pain response, and that response was to defend myself and get out of this situation. So I winded back my right arm and I made a fist and I started swinging on this cop's arm, punching his arm, the arm he was grabbing me with, to try and loosen his grip and let me go. And the craziest thing is that it worked. He actually let me go because I hurt him. Which is crazy because I'm not strong. I've never been strong. At 13, I was especially not strong. I was very weak and skinny. And the fact that that worked, I don't know, man. Maybe he shouldn't have been a cop. He seemed pretty weak for a cop. But yeah, he lets me go. And he was very angry at this point. And now he actually had a reason to arrest me because I punched him. So naturally, he goes right back at me, grabs me again. This time I didn't resist too much because I kind of knew I was fucked. He turned me around, put me in cuffs, he had another pair, and he put me in the cop car with Jeff. Now after we get in the cop car, I'm thinking we're going straight to jail. I think I'm going to juvie. I think I'm screwed. I think my life is over, right? I feel like I'm about to get charged with a crime. And honestly, he probably could have at this point because like I said, I did hit him. And no, he goes, "Where do you guys live?" And we both give our addresses. And he goes to Jeff's house first, drops Jeff off, talks to his parents for like 20 minutes, gets in the car with me, asks me again where I live. I tell him my address again. He takes me to my house, pulls up in the driveway, knocks on the front door. My brother answers because my mom was not home. She was at work, so my older brother answered. Now, my brother was 6 years older than I was. So yeah, he was 19. And let me just say something quick outside of this story. My brother's got more stories than I do. I'm not kidding. I know a lot of you comment like, "Oh, dude, how do you have so many stories?" This dude, you think I got stories? Like, this dude is the OG Luna. I tell him all the time to make a channel because he really is just an older me, and I think his stories are 10 times crazier. But that being said, he understands. He understood that I was a stupid kid that made a stupid mistake. So when he opened the door and he saw me in handcuffs and a cop next to me, he just kind of like gave me like a, "All right, let's get this over with" kind of look. And he opens like the screen door. He's like, "Hey officer, like what's going on?" And the officer's like, "Are your parents home?" And he's like, "No, my mom's at work. My dad lives like 10 minutes down the street. So yeah, no one's home." And he's like, "When's she gonna be back?" And he's like, "I don't know, probably like 2 or 3 hours. She works 4 to 9, so it's gonna be a while." And he's like, "All right, well, give me her phone number." So he gives him my mom's phone number. And he's like, "Your little brother here assaulted an officer. Yeah, he not only interfered with my duty of arresting somebody else, but he assaulted me." And I just stood there quietly. I didn't want to argue. Even though there was a lot more to the story than what he was saying, I just didn't want to deal with it. So I stood there quietly, let the officer speak. And after he was done telling, his side of the story, which left out a lot of details, he uncuffs me and tells me to go inside. So I do. And like 5 minutes after he talks to my brother for a little bit more, he leaves and he says that he's going to be giving my mom a call and he's going to talk to her about what happened so that I can be disciplined. And yeah, he leaves, right? So I'm sitting in the kitchen, right? I'm right behind the front door so I can hear everything still. And after the officer leaves, he closes the door, my brother, and he comes over to the table and he sits down and he goes, "Okay, so what actually happened?" And I just told him the whole story from start to finish from my point of view. And it made him see a little bit differently about the situation. And after that, I went to my room, laid down, and within like 10 minutes, I fell asleep. I took a nap, a pretty long one at that. I woke up like 2.5 hours later to the sound of my mom's voice. I opened my eyes and my mom's standing over my bed and she's like, "Hey, did you eat yet?" And I was like, "No, not yet." And she's like, "Okay, dinner's ready." And I went out in the kitchen, I sat down. I'm like freaking out on the inside because I don't know if the cop called her or not. I was assuming he didn't yet because she hadn't said anything about it. And I sit down at the table, so does she. And she goes, "What'd you do today?" And I was like, "Just kind of sat around, read a little bit." She's like, "Yeah, what are you reading?" And I was like, "Just The Outsiders." And that book's really good, by the way. I had to read it for school, but I actually really liked it. And she was like, Cool. Anything else?" And I was like, "No, not really." And she's like, "All right, well, if you want to watch some TV tonight, you can." And I was like, "Thank you." So I went to the living room after dinner, and I was watching TV, and the whole night I was just waiting. I knew that cop was going to call, and I knew when he did, it was going to be over for me. And the next day rolled around, no call yet. The day after that rolled around, no call. This cop never called my mom. And for fucking years, I wondered why. I never knew why. And I find out, like 2 years later, one night when I'm out with my brother, just getting burgers together, that he lied to the cop and gave him the wrong number. At the time, I didn't realize it because it sounded so similar, but he read my mom's number just like how it normally was, but he changed the last digit. My dumbass didn't know the difference because I didn't really know my mom's number off the top of my head. I would always just read it on a little notepad pinned to like the front of the kitchen. But I remember looking at him and being like, "Dude, why didn't you tell me this sooner?" He's like, "I don't know." And I was like, "Thank you, I guess." And he's like, "Yeah, no problem. I've been there." Now, the craziest part is this cop could have just came back if he wanted to, or like looked in like the database and found my mom's real number. But my assumption is that he called, probably left a message. My mom didn't call him back because it was the wrong number. And he probably just gave up on it. So I guess that's good. I don't know. Could have been a lot worse. But yeah, guys, that's the end of the story. In the end, everything was all good. I actually did tell my mom about this situation like years later when I was older. I told her the full story. And she actually kind of sided with me because, it was some bullshit. And you know what's really funny? The cherry on top with this story, 4 years later, my friend, one of my friends from that friend group in this story, sends me a news article. The same cop got kicked off the police force because he got caught using steroids, and I guess he was popping pills on the job, so that probably explains the mood swings that he was showing that day. But yeah, guys, a lot of morals to this story. Moral of the story is, you've probably listened to your parents and don't be like 13-year-old me and sneak off. Moral number 2, if you're a cop and you're watching this, which I doubt you are, but if you are, maybe like follow the rules a little bit and don't arrest people when they're not committing crimes. If you're kind of like Jeff, maybe don't yell dickhead at people, even though I think he was kind of in the right. Still, this probably wouldn't have all unfolded if he didn't say that. But I'm kind of glad it did. Definitely a good story. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this story time. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below. And subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys all later. Peace.